see people joining our very interesting panel about sustainability consumers, which is a very interesting topic. And my name is Aleksandra Jadczak from Academy of Fine Arts in Warsaw, and I am honored to run that panel. We have 3 presentations. There is going to be 1 movie, something really rare, and 2 researchers made in the topic in the field of consumers. So I think you're gonna be then after you're gonna have a full and wide knowledge about that topic. First presentation, this is something really special. This is gonna be a movie made in Baranjaan in India by Mehenji Dureju. She's here with us and the topic is designing slow fashion footwear in a pandemic, challenges and solutions. And it's a movie about about what happened in India. It's a movie about sustainable solutions for footwear and shoemaking. So Merenji, if you want to add something, I give you space, and I wish you all really nice time with that presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm Mendi, and I'm here to talk about how my footwear design label based in India managed to survive during the pandemic. And there were a lot of key learnings that we managed to learn while being on the ground with extensive shutdowns and basically everything where we learned how sustainability had a role to play on ground, like at the grassroots level. And it really inspired us, even though it was really difficult to continue with our idea of having zero inventory model, but it deeply inspired us to continue down the same path. So the movie is actually inspired by the same challenges that as a young label we faced. And we've tried to put it in contrast with how footwear is made in fast fashion versus how we make it, the minorities that we hire to make it, the kind of materials we use. We've also tried to put in a lot of video or footage from the other side of footwear production, just to give like an idea of how both these setups are very different. And I hope you like the movie. We're going to play it now. Could we have someone from the continue? Yes, thank you.
9 out of each 10 pairs of shoes are manufactured in Asia, dividing the world into producer countries and consumer countries. The consumer countries seem unwilling to take responsibility for the environmental and social impact that falls on the producer countries. COVID-19 changed everything. Across the world, we've seen loss of human life. The lockdowns revealed over-dependency in supply chains, which caused massive unemployment, wide-scale material shortage, and bulk order cancellations. Even the burden of failure of the system is unevenly distributed and ends up further deteriorating the conditions of the already strained daily wage workers. The footwear industry produces 23.5 billion pairs of shoes annually for 7.6 billion people in the world. 85% of these shoes end up in the landfills, where each pair can take up to 30 to 40 years to decompose. How much more do we need to consume? What is the true cost? And who ends up paying it? The real challenge in sustainable fashion is to aim for change that starts from the core and is long-term. Functional design is based on the idea that design must bridge the gap between human needs, culture, and ecology. Aesthetic is an inseparable aspect of functional design. When consumers discover the story behind a product, they feel encouraged to have a conversation around the roots of that product and experience a sense of attachment towards it. Responsible material selection is not only driven by aesthetic, but also takes accountability for the life cycle of the product. How was it sourced? At the end of its life cycle, could it be reused or recycled? Pattern making is an important aspect of design and production that cannot be overlooked in the conversation of sustainability. A well constructed shoe requires working with well balanced lasts and spot on patterns. Footwear that is designed to have a long lifespan stays out of landfills longer than a less durable product. Producing long lasting, well made products ensures that fewer products per year end up being disposed of. To keep our waste generation as low as possible, we operate on a zero inventory model, which means it is made especially once there is a guaranteed demand for it. The pandemic has led to the emergence of a mindful consumer making more evolved and meaningful buying choices. As habit driven buying gives way to thoughtful consumption, we understand the relevance of offering substantial products that add emotional value to your life. Handcrafting is an integral part of slow fashion that can strengthen appreciation and attachment. It can also be used to add unique details to the design. We create beauty through hands, relying on the rare knowledge handed down for generations of artisans who were artists at the same time. Brands can no longer not have an opinion about social injustice. We need to acknowledge everything that is wrong with this system and demand systemic reform. Why is it that an industry which is immensely profitable for some is forcing most of its workforce into modern day slavery? Sustainability is no longer important, it is imperative. Now is the time for companies to adhere to the highest standards of human rights, social justice, environmental laws and regulations, and most importantly, transparency across all business operations. Today, it is fast fashion and machine-made products that take away livelihoods from the members of the community traditionally involved with the craft, giving them a platform, giving them visibility, giving their art form some recognition can be the first vital step to talk about the issues faced by the community. At Banjaran, the hand is everything. It forms, it paints, it molds, and finally gives an identity to every object it finishes.
Thank you for that nice journey to your studio. Would you like to add something else about your research and about your problem and the process you are working with?
Yes, there were a lot of problems that really go untalked about. For example, what is the community that you are hiring, and when you do that, how are you taking care of that community? So I'm sure that everybody had come across videos which were coming out from India where migrant workers were left stranded, where they could not reach their cities back in time. There were a lot of these issues that in the bigger picture of fashion remain untalked about. So who are the people who are actually making this product, right? It's not being made just by the designer. So I designed the shoe, but who is making it? And were these people safe? So I remember during the lockdown, so I've based the video about our awakening with our relationship with sustainability, mainly during the pandemic really shaped that for us. So that conversation came to the forefront. What are we doing for the community? How do you take care of your people versus something that would be happening in a mass produced product. So I remember there was a time where priority was to take care of the team, to push out products that we knew would not contribute to something that the world was facing right then, to opt for raw material that was coming out from the country, and was slow fashion made, and also to promote more about the crafts that are coming from the country. So there were a lot of these conversations that came to the forefront. I do realize that in the film there's a lot being talked about very briefly, so we didn't really it was so difficult to dive into one particular thing, because I really wanted to bring the entire conversation to the table. So yes, I mean, that is all that I would like to say. If anyone would like to ask me questions, thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you so much. There is so many congratulations to you on the great video.
Thank you so much.
I think if there is no questions now, we may let other presentation be presented, and then if maybe at the end of our presentation you are more keen to pose the questions, because I think those presentations are very different, but they have also a lot in common. So thank you one more time for your nice presentation. And I would like now to invite group. It's a group work from Glasgow Caledonian University. It is going to be presented by Jennifer N. Brown, but this is a research about identity and self-expression, rethinking fashion marketing strategies to target Generation X women. But this is a research made not only by Jennifer, but also by Elaine Rich and Noreen Sindikwi, if I pronounced well.
Yeah.
Take your time, Jennifer. Stage is yours.
So yes, this study is primarily looking at Gen X women and how they use fashion to shape their identity, express themselves, and there's so much more involved than just fashion, and in a way just showing a particular style, etc. There's so much more involved in it, and that's what we're wanting to look at. So we are looking at it from a sociological perspective also. So the main reason behind this research topic is we believe Gen X and Gen X women are an exceptionally important generation. They do bridge a gap between the baby boomer generation and Generation Y, however, often overlooked by researchers and marketers and also fashion industry practitioners. So in some instances, we may say that they are almost stuck between these two generations, sandwiched between them. The fashion studies, as I just mentioned, do tend to focus on younger generations. So you've got the Generation Y and the even younger Generation Z consumers. There has been limited academic work that addresses Gen X female fashion consumers or the process of aging. It's almost something that academics, marketers, and particularly those within the fashion industry want to pretend doesn't happen. And it's very important, I believe, that we really do start focusing on aging and stop seeing it as a bad thing. There are so many cultures who see aging as a positive thing, brings wisdom, knowledge, but particularly within the Western world, it seems to be that it has negative connotations. So that is something that we are looking to move away from and almost embrace the aging process, if you like. So the aim of this research is primarily to explore the relationship that Gen X women have with fashion, and we are doing this through exploring how Gen X women use fashion to construct their identity, their status, perceptions of femininity, and also, as I mentioned earlier, we are wanting to look at it from a sociological perspective, and that also entails looking at emotions, etc., and how Gen X women use fashion in that way. Some of the objectives are to evaluate the extent to which Generation X use fashion to portray a positive social identity to those within their social circles. And the second objective is to evaluate the extent to which Gen X women relate to mainstream celebrities and fashion icons. It's a very important aspect of the research for me, because I do believe that women in general do tend to struggle to relate to mainstream celebrities. It's a different world and can be a challenge. Another objective is to examine the extent to which Gen X women feel under pressure due to balancing a career, a family life. They're one of the first generations of women to have to juggle so many different commitments within their lives due to having careers and also children, and much more involved, even looking after elderly parents, etc. in some cases. And then finally, we're looking to analyse how various life stages have shaped the identity creation of Gen X women. So, from the research that we have conducted, we strongly believe that Gen X women are an exceptionally powerful generation. They are actually one of the most powerful subsections of the population. So a very, very powerful and interesting demographic to look at. So I put in this quote because I thought it just really summed up Gen X women. Don't call them resilient, call them adaptable, independent, innovative. Just don't call them irrelevant. And for the most part, that's the way that we definitely feel Gen X women have been treated by marketers, in terms of pretty much being ignored to some extent by a lot of marketers, and especially with the fashion industry. So whilst we do know that perceptions of femininity have evolved considerably over the last 50 years, women are very much more involved in the workplace. Equality has definitely improved. However, even though that may be the case, Gen X women are still undoubtedly overlooked. It seems to have been the case for a number of years now, and it doesn't seem to be changing as quickly as we would like. And to me, this is surprising, because Forbes' most recent list of the most powerful women within the UK, this was done in 2020. Within that list, 70% of the women listed were in fact Gen X women. So again, just illustrating how powerful this demographic really are. So with regards to targeting methods by retailers, etc., and marketers, 82% of Gen X women who were surveyed within the last Great Generation report stated that fashion retailers provided a lack of choice for their generation. 86% said that style should not be defined by age. However, what we are finding is there is no in-between for women in terms of clothing. It seems to be a case of either targeting exceptionally young women or then going for a much older look. And Generation X at the moment do not want either of those. A number of Gen X women are saying we don't want to dress as we did in our 20s, but we don't want to be dressing in an old-fashioned way, if you like. We want this in-between look. And at present, it seems to be something that is challenging for a number of women to find. With regards to celebrities, mainstream celebrities, that is, the majority of Gen X women simply do not relate. A number of our research participants have said that they want to grow gracefully, etc., whereas the celebrities that you're seeing on television and within advertisements, for the most part, are going through cosmetic surgeries, that sort of thing, and portraying a look that just is not possible for the majority of women, and also believe that it is very damaging, not just to their generation, but they do worry about younger generations, particularly Gen Y and Gen Z, who are quite often obsessed by celebrity, and of course with the rise of social media, it is very much everywhere now. So for the most part, whilst they are not being successfully targeted, they do worry about the impact on younger generations of celebrity. So due to the fact that they cannot relate to mainstream celebrities, Gen X women are moving very much to vloggers and bloggers. due to the fact that they are normal people, if you like, and they are relatable. There's also been a sharp increase in Generation X Facebook pages, etc., whereby they can meet like-minded people, discuss problems or interests, that sort of thing. So very much a move from mainstream celebrity to that of more normal online people, if you like. So within this research, as you may have noticed already, we're focusing on Gen X and therefore are using generational cohort theory. However, there are a number of limitations to generational cohort theory. Some academics have stated that it's because it's a very wide birth range, if you like. So, for example, Gen X is from 1965 to 1980. They feel that it sometimes can be difficult to target that wide an age range because, of course, there may be differences from the younger to the older end of the scale. However, we did feel we had to group people in some shape or form, so that is why we decided to use generational cohort theory. However, to overcome the limitations, we are also using generational identity theory too. So generational identity theory and generational cohort theory combined. With regards to generational identity theory, individuals, it basically means individuals are aware of their membership within a particular group. So in this instance, Generation X. And also they feel some sort of connection to that group, if that makes sense. So with regards to this research, whilst we had the age range of birth years between 1965 up until 1980, if an individual fell slightly out with that age range, but identified with this generation, felt that they were part of that generation, then we would allow them to participate in the research. With regards to the methodology, we used a social constructionist lens, which primarily looks at an individual's perceived social reality. We've done this primarily because of the age range too, and also the fact that it's up to the person. If they perceive themselves to be part of that generation, then they are more than welcome to take part in the research, and also because clothing is one of the most visible forms of consumption, and again ties into social identity, how you want to portray yourself to the public, the outside world. With regards to data collection, I conducted in-depth ZMet interviews, and these were conducted remotely, primarily due to the coronavirus pandemic. So with this in mind, it did make the research quite different. ZMet has been utilised in previous studies. However, we utilised computer-mediated design. So we incorporated online video chat and collage creation. So it made the research exciting and different, in my opinion. The sample, we had 13 participants, and that is around the number that is prescribed by ZMet. Now, the number may seem quite low compared to other types of qualitative study. However, with regards to ZMet, they say that around 10 interviews is usually likely to uncover enough information, because it is very much a deep-rooted process. So with regards to ZMet, we use this because 90% of human communication is in fact non-verbal, and a lot of times when you interview people, they may be reluctant to say particular things, or they may not think deeply enough to give you insightful responses. But with regards to ZMet, we're uncovering deep-rooted thought processes. It's almost the subconscious we're getting into, and that's what makes it really exciting. So within the interview, we had participants prior to the interview, collect between 8 to 10 images that would sum up their identity as a Gen X woman, and also their style, their perceptions of fashion. So they could select images from any sources, from magazines through to online sources. That was absolutely fine. And then they came to the interview with their pictures, and we discussed each image. And then we worked to put each image into piles to see which ones would fit together, and then ultimately made a collage of their images at the end. So a really exciting method, in my opinion. and it was a very interesting experience. So data is still being analysed, but initial findings are showing that Generation X women are very much financially stable, and therefore they do have the ability to buy from, if you like, aspirational brands, or perhaps items that they've wanted to buy for a long time but perhaps couldn't in the younger years. And that is why we really do strongly believe that marketers and the fashion industry really need to start targeting Gen X women much more. They have the money to spend, they're willing to spend it, and it's almost like they don't have enough retailers to go to spend this money, if you like. So it's a real missed opportunity for retailers and the fashion industry. Another key finding is that they simply do not relate to mainstream celebrities, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, due to the fact that they just do not represent Gen X women at all. And of course, as I mentioned, they are putting, in Gen X women's opinion, a lot of pressure on younger women to look a certain way. Another key finding was that Gen X women are making their own money and can spend it on what they want. And this is, of course, something that a number of women from previous generations would not have had the opportunity to do. We're noticing a sharp increase in the number of women who are, in fact, the main breadwinner within the family. So very much important, again, that retailers do take this into account. A finding that I found particularly interesting was the fact that a number of Gen X women are feeling judged by other mothers for having a career. A lot of women were saying things along the lines of they feel judged by some mothers at the school they attend who don't work, and they feel that they think they don't spend enough time with their children because they're working full time, etc. But then at the same time, we were having participants say that they never had children and they're still being judged by people. Why didn't you have children? Did you not meet the right person? As if there's got to be something wrong because you didn't have children. It's a very bizarre thing, and we're finding a lot of the participants were saying you just can't win. You're judged for not having children, you're judged for having children and working. So again, that for us involved in this research is a major problem, and again that's something that we would seek to address. So I've touched upon this a little bit, but just to finish off with regards to some of the implications of the research, we strongly believe that this research will be able to inform design, marketing and management practices and enable retailers to more effectively target this demographic and also engage with this demographic. And also with regards to using a ZMET approach, we strongly believe that we will or could give fashion retailers the ability to gain a competitive advantage through stronger targeting methods. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was really interesting. Does anybody have questions now? Because I only wanted to say that you did the research about something here in Poland we can really feel, you know. I didn't do quantitative research like you did, but it's great that you confirm something we can really see, and I think it's really a gap this generation within the fashion market.
Yeah.
Especially here when you can even see that the offer for them, this is called garments, not fashion.
Yeah.
You know, and for younger generation there is fashion. For them there are garments and clothing.
Exactly.
Even in the marketing you can feel that. Great, thank you so much. It was very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody have questions for Jennifer now? Okay, if not, so let me present the next and the last presentation in this panel. This is going to be presentation made by University Europeia Lisbon from Portugal, our dear Portugal, where Isabella Cantista, founder of that conference, is from. This is going to be presented by Ana Neto, but this is research made in cooperation with Jairo Ferreira. And the title is What Makes It Last? Exploring relationship threats in long-term wear clothing relationship. This is something I'm really looking for, because I'm looking for this relationship with long-term garments. So I am really opening my ears. Stage is yours, Anna. Good luck.
Thank you, Alexander. I'm Anna. I'm a PhD candidate, and I'm here today to present the recent developments of my doctoral research project. The project is about the way people relate with their clothes and what makes us wear our clothes for longer. The need to slow down consumption and to support garment longevity is what driving the growing body of research on this topic. And in this particular project, we compare the relationship between wearers and clothes with interpersonal love relationships, because they seem to have quite a lot in common. We made a survey where we asked participants to think and write about a garment they had for a long time and was still in use. We focused our analysis on female participants because the responses we received were mainly from women. The vast majority of these women were living in Western countries, and so we assume that most of them are likely to have an easy access to fashion. And so whatever the garments they kept wearing for a long time, it was likely because they wanted it and not because of economic hardship. And even though this is a limited sample, the open-ended questions allowed for a rich study of the qualitative data. And so we started by asking the participants to describe their chosen garment and to name the reasons they thought that were behind that longevity. Their answers were in line with existing research on this subject. But we find it difficult to translate into design guidelines. They are highly subjective and dependent on each participant's perception and context. But it was also during the first analysis of this data that we understood that many participants in the study had gone through some sort of conflict with their garment throughout their relationship. And so actually, what we think as reasons for garment disposal can be framed as conflicts in wearer clothing relationships. And in some cases, those conflicts result in breakup or disposal, and in others, it does not. So, for example, we know that many people discard the clothes because they look faded or worn, but many of us will recognize that one piece in our wardrobe that we keep wearing over and over again, no matter how worn it looks, you know? And so more than the conflict itself, which is bound to happen at some point in time between wearer and garment, it is the willingness and ability of wearers to deal with that conflict that is paramount to garment longevity. And so our next question was, what makes wearers willing and able to deal with conflict with their clothes? And so we looked into this same data for evidence of behaviors or attitudes that could explain why, in the face of conflict, these wearers were able and willing to deal with it instead of rejecting the garment. But then how can theory on interpersonal love relationships help us in this task? Well, many couples believe that after finding their soulmate, love will solve all the challenges that comes their way. However, this idea is a bit unrealistic, as love is not a finish line, but it's something that has to be nurtured through time. This resonates with our feelings of attachment for objects, which can only last if they are nurtured. In the mid-90s, there was a researcher called Alfred Cooper who conducted a long-term marriage survey and found out that the happiest long-term married couples in his study had a give-and-take attitude. They had a willingness to sacrifice for each other. They defined their marriage as a creation that had taken hard work and dedication and commitment. And so what we can see is that more than trying to avoid negative behaviors or conflict situations, a happy relationship is one that nurtures positive behaviors. John Gottman, one of the most prominent researchers on love relationships, and with over 4 decades of research on married couples, found that happier and stronger couples were thriving not only by simply avoiding negative behaviors, but by actually engaging in behaviors which maintain and even enhanced the positivity in their relationship. And so we wondered, could similar behaviors be found in wearer clothing relationships? Well, our analysis suggests so. Gottman developed a model to explain how healthy and happy couples thrive, which he called the sound relationship house theory. And so we studied that theory and analyzed our data and understood there was a parallel with wearer clothing relationships. And so this theory comprises three systems: the friendship system, the conflict system, and the meaning system. Well, we will now take a look at each of them and explain how they apply, or how can they be recognized in wearer clothing relationships. So the first system is the friendship system. It is the foundation of the sound relationship house, and it is based on the notion that three principles of friendship are essential to nurture positivity in a relationship. The first one is building love maps. In interpersonal relationships, this relates to wanting to know about our partner, their tastes, their dreams, their aspirations, their fears. But it's not just during those first weeks of romance, you know. With time, life changes and people change. So more than building a love map, it is important to keep it updated. Gottman explains that when we do this and some stressful situation happens, we are far more prepared to deal with it. And so in wearer clothing relationships, love maps refer to how much the wearers know about their garments. Many participants from our survey showed that they knew what their garments were made of. For example, they knew their fabric composition, or they knew who had made their garments, and they knew how to take care of it. For example, one participant said, well, I only wash this particular item by hand because the fabric is very sensitive. And another one said, well, I only use special leather products to take care of this jacket. But love maps also relate to the wearer's knowledge on how to use the garment. When we first buy a garment, we probably think of a couple of other clothes that we already have in our wardrobe that could go well with it, and we may wear that garment with those preconceived outfits for a long time. But if we learn how to use it in different ways, we are able to enjoy it more. And this connects to the notion of versatility, frequently mentioned as a reason for garment longevity. And here, what our findings suggest is that versatility is not so much a characteristic of the garment, but more an ability of the wearer to make the garment versatile. Then there is fondness and admiration, which in interpersonal relationships boils down to being appreciative of our partner, to recognize their worth and to cherish them. Gottman explains that being able to frequently appreciate one's partner gives a positive feeling that acts as a buffer when bad times hit. In wearer clothing relationships, we recognize it when our participants would say that their garment was perfect or beautiful or really suiting them when they were stating reasons for garment longevity. And it is this appreciation that makes us want to use a garment again and again and to want to make it last. Then finally, in the friendship system, we have the turning towards instead of away. In interpersonal relationships, this concerns the daily opportunities we have to connect with our partner, even in small ways. And Gottman notes that we should take those opportunities instead of ignoring or shying away from them. This is important as these connections build intimacy over time and make the relationship stronger. In wearer clothing relationships, this is basically taking the opportunities to wear the garment. In our study, we could identify this turning towards behavior in participants that mentioned wearing their items all the time or labeling them as their go-to items. And so Gottman distinguishes these three principles, but they are closely connected and they frequently feed each other. Together, they create a solid foundation for the other two systems to exist. So then the second system that Gottman talks about is the conflict system, which relates to the ability to deal with conflict. One of the two principles of this system is the positive perspective, a positive perspective when facing conflict. And what the friendship principles provide is a positive sentiment override. But what is this positive sentiment override? Gottman explains how in interpersonal relationships, we create a sort of bank account for interactions. Every time we interact with our partner, that positive or negative interaction goes into the bank account. So the positives build up and the negatives tear down. When facing conflict with that someone, the status of that bank account will largely influence how we deal with that conflict. And if the interaction's bank account is positive, we have what Gottman calls the positive sentiment override. That is, the positivity that we feel towards that person will override the negative feelings we are having from that particular conflict situation. And this is especially helpful to avoid conflict escalation. For example, when we have a conflict, we understand that our negative feelings are from that conflict and that from that situation. The reason is there's something wrong, but with the situation and not with our partner. So it's important to avoid escalation of conflict. In wearer clothing relationships, this happens, for example, when wearers face difficult stains. If there were lots of positive interactions with that item, a positive sentiment overrides the negative situation, and the person thinks, well, there's no way this stain is going to ruin my pants for me, and the wearer will make an effort to remove that stain, as some participants in our study reported doing. If on the other hand, there's no positive buffer, the wearer may think, oh, bummer, I just need to buy new pants. And Gottman also explains that positive and negative interactions do not have the same weight in our relationships. That is to say that a negative interaction weighs down in the relationship more than what a positive interaction would lift that relationship up. So basically, we need lots of positive interactions to act as a buffer during stressful events. Then the other principle of this conflict system is managing conflict. Gottman explains that many of the conflicts that married couples go through are not solvable. So dealing with conflict is not only overcoming what can be solved, but also managing what can't be fixed. And this is pretty much related to the positive sentiment override we were just talking about. In wearer clothing relationships, this happens in cases like, for example, a participant acknowledged that her dress was looking faded and worn. But due to lots of positive interactions with it, a positive sentiment overrided the negative situation. And she said, yeah, the dress is faded, it sucks, but it still has got life. And she just kept wearing it, even if she couldn't do anything to make the dress look new or to look brand new again. But if, on the other hand, there was no positive buffer, there would be no motivation to manage unsolvable conflict. And that same participant could think, this dress looks worn, I'm not using this old rag, and would just toss it in the corner of the wardrobe to be forgotten. So this is why this managing conflict is very important. So overall, this conflict management system is what makes us go on wearing our clothes even when we face conflict. And therefore, this is a very important contribution to long-lasting wear clothing relationships. Then finally, we have the meaning system. This meaning system also builds from the friendship system, and it is mostly related to our emotional attachment to clothing, and that notion of clothing influencing or being part of our past and future biographies. One of the principles of this system is making dreams come true. Gottman explains that we all have our personal dreams and aspirations, like feeling safe or young, feeling at peace, feeling free. And it is important that partners help each other in achieving those dreams and aspirations. Similarly, we tend to value clothes that enables us to achieve our dreams and aspirations and to lead the lives that we live. In our study, we could recognize this principle when participants shared the specific feelings they had when wearing their items for certain occasions. For example, there was a participant who felt like $1 million when she wore her garments to a work event. And there was another participant who remembers feeling confident and empowered in her dress as she was having her first kiss with her current husband. So feeling that clothes help us to achieve our dreams makes us feel that we can rely on them for future occasions, and therefore it contributes to desire to go on wearing the clothes that one already has. Then the other principle is creating shared meaning. Gottman defines shared meaning as the microculture that develops between two partners as they share their life and experiences together, and they build symbols and stories and memories around their life together. Similarly, in wear clothing relationships, creating shared meaning refers to the memories that we create in our shared life with our garments, and that frequently becomes embedded in that garment. And so we frequently think of garments as memory containers, as they come to symbolize something that happened in our lives. But for example, we may look at our one jacket that we have and think about the memories it has of a fantastic trip we made. But we can also note that that trip is actually a memory of our relationship with the jacket. And in our studies, participants that shared memories about their life with their garments are an evidence of this principle. Overall, the meaning system contributes to our attachment to clothing on a deeper level, which previous research has already found to be essential to sustain wear clothing relationships. But we can understand also how the principles of this system are highly connected to the other systems. And of course, the parallel that we made here has its limitations. In interpersonal relationships, both partners are expected to support each other and to have certain behaviors, whereas in wear clothing relationships, the wearer has the active role. But the result is still a give and take situation. And so our main takeaways from this study are that, one, principles of healthy, long-lasting interpersonal relationships can be found in wear clothing relationships. The second is that the three friendship principles help to create a buffer when stressful events hit the relationship, and therefore they contribute to the willingness of wearers to overcome conflict situations. And then finally, the third takeaway is that the meaning system is very important, but just like the conflict system, it is dependent on a solid friendship system. And through this perspective, our findings suggest that designing for emotional attachment should not aim at the principles of the meaning system, but rather at supporting the friendship system, which is foundational for emotional attachment to develop. And that's it. Thank you for listening. And this is a work in progress, so you're welcome to drop me a message or a comment later on or now, and because I would love to discuss these issues further. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anna. I knew before this conference that I will gain a lot of knowledge, but I didn't know it's going to be also knowledge about love. This is a great research, and it shows how multidisciplinary approach to fashion is important, I think. Congratulations, and this is a big group which you take under consideration in that field, and I love all these theories. And also, this is really so, as you said, we have to relove our clothes. It is something which was said so many times during that conference even, but the way you showed the relation between the theory of love and relationship and the relation to the garments, this is so important. So I wish you a good luck with the research. I am looking for publications and your interventions. I'm gonna write your email and I'm gonna write you something. Is there anybody who wants to pose the questions? Great presentation and a wonderful insights on the topic. This is what is written on the chat.
Thank you.
Maybe somebody wants to share some also emotions, some conclusions.
It's very interesting that I think most of us can really recognize that some clothes we really love, but then when we try to talk about it, to rationalize it, it's very strange to feel that we love an object, that we love clothes, but it's true, and love has very different shapes, comes in different shapes and sizes, and it is possible to feel love for clothes. And I think that what's motivating this research is really love, because I was trying to understand what makes people wear their clothes for longer, and I was understanding that people may be worried about sustainability issues, environmental issues and social issues surrounding clothing production. But, they're worried, but when it's time to buy, they just buy. So yes. It's not, ethical concerns will not change your behavior. And so I thought, well, then what changes your behavior? And well, it's love.
Great answer, and I think that also from the historical presentations from yesterday, and we're gonna conclude that also today, this is very important thing, that the clothes are a really important part of our life. This is very important relation, which you cannot get rid of, because you may live on your own, but you still have to have some clothes in your wardrobe. So I think it's better to have a good relation with them. Then it makes you really on different levels of your life. It makes you feel better. It may give you more power. It may protect you from so many things. So this story about love is really beautiful at the end, and it gives such an important understanding to all those topics we discussed. So that love during the production process, during the design process, but also then after this relation. But I think this is the same energy which then goes from one place to another, and it's never lost. So this was really beautiful. There is a question from Cambria Sinclair. Did you research any practical applications of your research into the design process? Any particular design methods, styles, attributes that help increase the friendship system within clothing that we buy?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And what I'm trying to, the next level of this research will be to understand what designers can do beyond developing new clothes. Because, for example, in other areas of design, for example, communication design, you can either work for making books or flyers or objects, but you can also work in areas such as social design, social innovation, or design for social innovation, which is really worried about something that's happening at a systemic level and not at an object level. And so what I'm trying to understand is that, well, how can fashion designers grab a new territory, a new scope of action that goes beyond producing new clothes? How can they act beyond just making stuff? And during this study, we were also reading about the subject, and we could understand there are some initiatives that help with this. For example, there's a designer, I can't remember the name, I'm sorry, but she's a recent graduate from Kolding University in Denmark, and I know that she was graduated in fashion design, but she was working as a stylist. But whereas traditional stylists help people to organize their closets and to buy clothes that will fit them and that will look good on them, what this designer was doing was just helping the clients to know their wardrobe better and to learn more about the clothes they already had, and how to style with what they already had. So this is a very interesting perspective on her side, because she wasn't promoting new purchases. She was just wanting to help clients to wear what they already have. So this is one example where designers can act not in designing new things, but in mediating wear clothing relationships. Then, for example, another. And this, when this stylist's job, as she was teaching or helping customers learn more about their clothes, she was actually helping with that principle of building love maps, getting to know their clothes and how to use them in different ways. And for example, there are projects, some initiatives around the world, and there's even a brand that's promoting, that's challenging their customers to wear a certain garment for. There's a brand that's promoting people to wear the garment for 100 days in a row. But there's also another project, I think it's Project 33, which is also focusing on minimizing the wardrobe for a certain amount of time. And these initiatives, what they do is that they help people to focus on a smaller amount of items, of clothing items, for a period where they have the opportunity to get to know and to develop this friendship system. Because if you wear the same clothes for a very long time, well, you have the opportunity to try to figure out how to use them differently when in days that you're feeling creative, or learning how to take care of it, because you know that you will need to wear that same piece of clothing on the next day, so you really want to take care of it and make sure it doesn't get soiled or anything. And so trying to promote frequent wear of items is also a way to promote this friendship system. But well, for now, this is where I am. I still need to do more research on it. I hope it has helped to answer the question.
Of course. Thank you so much. Are there any more questions? Oh, there is a question and a comment on your presentation, I think, as well. Wonderful research. I am interested in this relationship with clothing in the context of clothes among homeless.
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, thank you for the compliment. And that's a very interesting question. And yesterday, as sorry, I forgot the name, but the journalist from yesterday presenting on the importance of clothing in concentration camps.
Carolina Sulej, yes.
Yes, it was amazing. And it really got me thinking, well, yes, what about these people that only have the clothes on their bodies? Mm-hmm. And it's very strange, because it's when Carolina was saying that they only had their clothes, and even when they had to use the striped clothes or clothes that weren't theirs, it was very degrading, because it's stripping them of their identity. But actually, I was thinking, well, but for them to survive, they had to create a relationship with that clothing. They had to create a relationship that worked. Otherwise, it would be really difficult, emotionally difficult, to go on wearing those same items without trying to see, well, how can this garment help me throughout the days. Because that's what happens when in the morning, when we choose the clothes that we want to wear, we are actually choosing the partners that will help us to do the things that we want to do during that day. So when you don't have a choice, when it's only the only clothes you have, I think it's more natural that you will develop this, or at least that you will attempt to make those garments work for your life. But it's very interesting. I would love to know more about how homeless people and even people in countries that don't have that much access to fashion. I would love to hear their take on this and how their love for garments work. But it's difficult to do everything in the doctoral timeline, isn't it?
It's what the person who posed that question is writing. It's another example of a different perception of clothes. I think this is the clothes which are your home a bit, This is completely other context. And thank you for your research. It's written on the
Thank you
as well. So thank you so much. I'm really in love and I am like in some other place right now.